Hey, what's up guys? Harry here, and today I've got a video for you all about how to get more riders to rate you. So ratings are always sort of a volatile topic with drivers and sometimes even passengers. The big complaints I hear from drivers is that it's not a fair system, right? Drivers have to maintain a 4.6 rating in order to stay active on the platform. Passengers have no such requirements. Also not many passengers, I also hear from drivers that not many passengers are aware of how the Uber rating system works, where essentially a 5 is a passing grade or an acceptable grade, and a 4 is sort of a failing grade, right? Because you have to maintain a 4.6 star rating to stay active on the platform. So, obviously in normal life, on Yelp or TripAdvisor, or something like that, most people would eat at a 4-star restaurant, but a 4-star Uber driver is actually going to be fired. The thing you have to realize though is that all of us Uber and Lyft drivers get those types of passengers, right? All of us, there's not one driver who's going to get more uneducated, passengers about how the Uber rating system works. We all get those uneducated passengers. And so that's sort of the thing that you have to realize, that over time, these things should even out. Now, there are a lot of things I think Uber could do better with their rating systems, for sure. I mean, they could allow drivers to challenge certain ratings. They could give you better feedback loops, to say, hey, right now they say what you're doing positive, but really what you need to know is what you're doing poorly so that you can improve it. But at the same time, we have the system we have. And what I want to talk about right now is how to get more riders to rate you, and also why it matters. Because we know there have been studies that have shown people who have a bad experience at a restaurant on Uber, whatever it might be, tend to leave a negative, if they have a negative experience, they tend to leave a review more often than someone who has a positive experience, right? So that makes sense, right? If you had a terrible experience somewhere, you want to let everyone know. You want to tell everyone, right? And there have been a bunch of studies that, they say the numbers are anywhere from, 2 times as likely to 10 times as likely. I think what we can all agree on is, though, that they're definitely more likely. So really, there's a lot you can do to focus on not getting bad ratings in the first place, understanding navigation, knowing your city, all that good stuff that I've talked about in other videos. But really what I want to focus on right now is how to get those riders who don't rate you to leave you a rating. And the reason why this is important is because, think about it, right? If all those people with negative experiences are leaving a rating, what about all those positive experiences? Not everyone is leaving you a rating. So odds are that if most of the people who aren't rating you, right, if they did rate you, you would have a bunch more 5 stars. So Uber used to actually show this in the Uber driver app, right? They would show you the total rides you've completed in the last week, the number of ratings, the number of 5 stars. On my app, I don't see that anymore. You may still see it. They sort of bring it, some of these features back and on. You can always try messaging Uber to get that type of information from them. But what I used to always notice when I was tracking this from week to week is only about 25 to maybe 40% of riders would actually leave a rating. And your rating is based on your last 500 rated trips with Uber. So if you do 500 trips and only 200 people leave you a rating, your rating is based on those 200 ratings. So those other 300 don't count. They don't count as zeros or anything like that. Lyft bases it on the last 100 rated trips. So it's definitely important, right? So what can you do or say to get all those people who aren't leaving a rating to leave your rating, since we think, or the hypothesis, right, is that it's most likely going to be a 5 stars. And I've done this and tried it and tested it, and I think it definitely helps. So, using this, I'm up to a 4.93, and this is, one of the many things I do, but I definitely think that it helps. So I'm not a big fan of just asking the passenger for 5 stars or putting up a rating sign or something like that, because when you think about it, right, you stay at a nice hotel on your way out. Do they say, hey, leave us a 5 star when you get home, right? They don't do it. They might do it in more subtle ways, but the nicest places don't do that. Now, there is that education component, and I have heard from drivers having that rating sign there does help, because it educates those drivers who aren't aware that a 4 star is basically a failing grade. That's one option, but I like to find more elegant solutions. So, some of the strategies that I've been using is, the first one that I like to do is oftentimes I'll end the trip just a little bit early, just like a few seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, as we're pulling up to the destination or before they get out. Ideally, you really just want to make it happen before they get out, and I'll end it so that the rating screen actually pops up. It takes a second or two to populate, and you can quickly leave them a 5 stars and say, thanks for being a 5-star passenger, or just reinforce the fact that, hey, I'm giving you 5 stars, right? Because that's going to make them more likely to give you 5 stars, right? If they know, that's sort of why on marketplace platforms, they don't let you see each other's rating until you both have left a rating, because if they saw that you left them a 4, right, they might be more likely to leave you a 4 and vice versa. So that's why I think it's important to try this tactic. I mean, I have my phone mounted right there on the dash, which I think everyone should have. You can say something like, hey, 5 stars for you. So that's one option. I've also tried telling passengers, hey, something, kind of cheeky, like, hey, I'm trying to break my record for the number of 5-star ratings for a week. So if you have time to leave a rating, I'd really appreciate it. Now, the reason why I say it like that is because I'm not trying to tell them, hey, leave me a 5-star rating, but I am trying to encourage them to give a rating and give them a little motivation. I mean, I do something similar on my podcast, right? I basically encourage people to leave reviews, and I don't say on my podcast, leave me a 5-star review. I actually read off all the names. I go into iTunes and I read off all the names of the people who have left me 5-star reviews. So it's sort of like, oh, cool. If I want to get mentioned on that Rideshare Guy podcast, I can leave a review and get that mention, right? And then I go and say, hey, I read off all the 5-star reviews, so if you'd like to leave me a review, go for it on iTunes. But I'm not explicitly asking for that. So that's where I think it's definitely, a little tactic you can use. And then I also like to tell riders that, hey, I'm always trying, when they're getting out or during the conversation, say, hey, I'm always trying to improve as a driver, right? So, maybe I'll explain that Uber doesn't do a great job of providing feedback, but just say, hey, if you have any feedback for me, please leave a rating and a comment when you get out, right? It's really just about encouraging that rating. And then the other thing that sometimes I might do, and this I did a lot right after Uber released the new passenger app, because it was a little bit different, and the way that you rate is actually a lot different now on the Uber passenger app. It used to pop up right then and there after the trip, and now you actually have to scroll down into the feed. So that's one tactic. You can ask them if they're familiar with the new Uber passenger app. With some passengers, I actually ended the trip and then showed them how to leave a rating. So that's a really good tip for those new passengers that you get who maybe you find out it's their first time, and you say, hey, do you need any help understanding the app, learning how to leave a rating, anything like that? And so that's really how you can sort of use these pretty simple tactics to go and get yourself more ratings. And that's the nice thing about a lot of these strategies, is they really don't take a lot of time and they really don't take a lot of brain power, but if you use them, you can actually increase or improve the number of people, your percentage of people that leave you ratings. And ideally, the more 5-star ratings you'll get, the higher rating you'll get, and then you can use that in other areas. So I'm curious if you guys have any ideas or what you say to your passengers. Honestly, I'm not that creative, so I'm sure that a lot of you are doing more creative stuff, and I'd love to hear from you. So if you like this video, feel free to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment if you have any questions. Look forward to hearing from you.